In writing, there is a theory known as kill your darlings. It means to write something good, you have to delete and destroy a lot of the stuff you already like to make something better. I find that theory can be applied to most forms of art and making. With that in mind, I have a darling to kill. You may remember my Christmas dress from last year. I had a slight problem with the drafting of the back pieces that led to the waist seam being very wonky. While I am genuinely happy with this dress, I have decided that I want to do something different with it. So today, I'm going to seam rip this dress and turn it into a skirt instead. The first step is to have a look at the waist seam and figure out the best way to pull it apart. I ended up seam ripping both the entire waist seam and all the way down the centre front of the skirt. The act of destroying something with the intent to make it better is extremely intimidating, especially when you're going at your own work with the seam ripper. A lot of questions and a lot of what ifs were running through my mind as I took the seam ripper in hand and poked and prodded at the seams of this dress that I worked so hard on last year. What if I ruin it? What if I make it worse? What if I end up regretting it? What if? But I knew one thing for certain. I had a year of new experiences under my belt, and what a year it was, and I had no real intentions of wearing the dress as it was, so I might as well try and turn it into something I'm more likely to actually wear. So I took a deep breath, ignored the anxious questions running through my mind, and began pulling the seams apart. Once the seams had been successfully ripped apart, it was time to figure out what I wanted to add to make this skirt something wearable, stylish, and comfortable. Obviously, it would need a waistband and some kind of closure. I originally was going to add a zip at the back of the skirt, but I couldn't find one in my stash that worked, and I could not be bothered to go get a zip specifically for this project. Besides, the dress had these lovely buttons that I knew went beautifully with the fabric, so buttons it was. I ended up cutting 3 rectangles, one for the waistband, one for the button placket, and one for the facing for the buttonholes. When I made the original dress, it was one of the first full garments I made, and I was very new to both garment making in general and specifically working with a sewing machine rather than sewing by hand. Even though there were a lot of flaws with it, I was proud of what I had made, and I honestly still am. So why rip it apart and remake it? There were two major reasons behind the decision. The first was a practical one. I technically never finished the dress. The insides were raw and I had been planning on trying to correct the fit, so I left it in my pile of works in progress and promptly forgot about it. That was until my partner helped me go through my obnoxiously large pile of whips that was taking up the entirety of the drawer we were supposed to be sharing in the sewing room. I have a slight problem with getting projects to about 90% done and then starting something else. I had to decide which whips to permanently abandon and which ones to actually finish, and how I was actually going to finish them. As I examined the dress, I knew that the amount of work needed to fix all of the fit issues was beyond what I was willing to put in for a dress that I would only realistically wear for 1 month of the year, but I felt too happy with it to fully abandon it. So the solution of converting it into a skirt was decided on. A nice easy fix, keeping my favourite part of the dress, and taking away the area that had big fit issues. The second reason was as a challenge to myself. Can I take something that I'm already pretty happy with and make it something I'm even more proud of? It was also a challenge to see if I could push through all that anxiety and worry about potentially destroying something that was perfectly acceptable. Could I kill my darling and make something even better? Challenge was definitely the theme of this project. Once the placard and facing were sewn on, it was time for the buttonholes. Now, I have never been brave enough to tackle doing buttonholes by machine, but the wonderful new machine we have has a one-step buttonhole setting, and I was short on time, so it was time to be brave. I read through the manual about 6 times and did countless test buttonholes on a scrap of the fabric. Once I was as confident as I could be, I began sewing the buttonholes onto my skirt. They didn't turn out perfectly even, but honestly they turned out so much better than I thought they would. For the waistband, I originally cut it with the intention of making it one piece, sewing it on one side, folding it in half, and sewing down the other side. However, after sewing down the first side, I went to check the fit and realised I really liked how it looked with the wide waistband. So I decided to cut another rectangle about the same size, this time from a slightly stiffer cotton that wouldn't be seen and would reinforce the waistband, and sew that like a lining. I find myself able to improvise with projects a lot more these days, where previously I would simply give up or settle for something that's not as good as it could be. I now have enough knowledge of general sewing and making practices that I can usually muddle my way through to a solution. Sewing a second piece of fabric to make the waistband wider seems like a very simple solution, but I probably wouldn't have been able to come up with it a year ago. It feels really good to be able to see tangible examples of your skills improving. When I have those little aha moments, it really gives me a kick of confidence. By this point in the project, I was desperate for some hand sewing. I am so glad that I am gaining confidence with machine sewing, but hand sewing is still my favourite form. With the waistband mostly finished, I sat down with some cos tube on in the background and began whipping down the end of the waistband to the seam allowance. I think what can make a challenging project much more approachable is if you can find the comfortable moments in it. Is it emotionally challenging to seam rip your work to pieces? Yes. Is it physically difficult to sit down and run a seam ripper through simple straight seams? Not at all. Is it intimidating to use a sewing machine for almost everything? For me, yes. So I balanced that out by doing handwork in a few of the more tricky seams. While most of this project involved challenging aspects, I made sure to find bits I knew I was good at or comfortable with and scattered them throughout. It made the whole project feel much more approachable. I was on the home stretch now. The last of the steps was simply finishing some raw edges, sewing on the buttons and the hook and bar for the waistband. All very simple things. With just a few hours of comfortable hand sewing, I was finished. Except the placement of the buttons meant that there was a big section just under the waistband that gaped significantly. I was in a rush because I really wanted to wear this skirt to a get-together that evening, so I whipped on a snap hoping it would fix it, but it really didn't. So I accepted I couldn't wear it that night, put it aside, and came back the next day. Once more, it was time to take the seam ripper to my finished project. Very luckily, I magically found one more button. It must have got tangled up in some scrap fabric because it literally fell on the ground in front of me as I was digging around to try and come up with a better solution for the gaping problem. It was a Christmas miracle. So, for one last time, I pulled out the buttonhole foot, added one last buttonhole, and finally, the skirt was actually complete. I am so happy with this skirt. The fit isn't perfect, but it's infinitely better than the dress before it. It's got a wonderful amount of swoosh, it's comfortable, and it fits in with my general wardrobe much better than the dress did. This project was challenging, but I think that makes me even more proud of the end result. Thank you everyone for your patience while I've been away the last few months. I have a lot of exciting things planned for the new year, so please do subscribe so you don't miss those. Also, one last thing before you go. Those of you who follow me on Instagram may remember the stickers I launched a few months ago. They'll be restocked in early January, and I'm also working on more sticker designs, so do keep an eye out for those in the next month or so. And finally, if you would like to support the channel, please consider popping a donation to my Ko-fi page. The link is in the description. All funds will go towards making more and better content for this channel. Thank you everyone. Whatever you celebrate, I hope your holidays are wonderful and full of light. Merry Christmas to all, and to all, a good night.